For centuries, the city of Pompeii remained buried under layers of ash and stone, like a page of ancient Roman history frozen in time. Its ruins, revealing only fragments of a vast mosaic of the past, created the impression that we were looking at individual frames of a long-lost film capturing moments from the lives of Roman citizens. It seemed that this city, frozen in time, had already told its story, revealed its secrets, and could no longer surprise us with anything new. However, in recent years, archaeologists have made astonishing discoveries that completely change our understanding of this ancient city and its inhabitants. Particularly significant are the findings made in the recently cleared streets of the area, known as the 9th District of Pompeii, which had long remained almost untouched and hidden under a layer of volcanic ash. It is from this place that revelations have emerged capable of overturning our perceptions of life in Pompeii and the culture of the entire ancient Roman civilization. And only in this city can one see not just the ruins of ancient buildings, but the living traces of the lives of those who once inhabited it, captured at the moment when civilization was reaching its peak. Before delving into the details of the new archaeological finds, I would like to ask readers for a little support. Your attention, interest, and perhaps a small contribution would be the best gratitude for the work done to restore the history of this unique city. Thank you for your understanding and support. For centuries, the history of Pompeii has been passed down through fragments, shadows of the past, through ruined buildings and preserved artifacts, like fragments of long-forgotten dreams. But it is the latest scientific achievements and new discoveries that allow us to revive the very human agony captured in volcanic ash, the sufferings, joys, and daily lives of people separated from us by centuries. These discoveries are not just an addition of new details to an already known picture, but a real breakthrough that can completely change our understanding of the ancient world, shedding light on what their daily life, work, and passions were like. And most importantly, these finds lay buried under a layer of pumice and stone for almost 2,000 years, waiting for their moment to tell their story once again. Among them are astonishing testimonies revealing hidden aspects of Roman life, such as a prison bakery where, it seems, the darkest and often forgotten pages of history related to exploitation and cruelty took place. There were also disturbing sketches made by a child's hand, adding a special emotional depth to the overall portrait of the past. These finds not only complement historical information, but also rewrite it, making it more complete and alive. Ahead of us lies a journey during which we will learn about new discoveries in the region of the 9th District of Pompeii, which compel us to look at the past anew from a different perspective. Archaeologists have discovered an entire banquet hall in Pompeii, whose walls have been preserved in remarkably good condition and adorned with frescoes executed with such precision and craftsmanship that they inspire true admiration. This discovery is a true gem of the region, fundamentally changing our understanding of elite life during the years when Pompeii was at the height of its prosperity, in 79 AD. The hall, stretching an impressive 15 meters in length, served as a venue for lavish receptions and spectacular events, symbolizing the wealth and status of its owners. Its walls, done in coal black, were not just a fashionable interior element, but a well-thought-out practical solution. In the dim light created by the soft glow of oil lamps, soot and grime became almost invisible, allowing the walls to maintain their cleanliness and beauty. But there was a deeper meaning behind this. The dark tones provided a backdrop for the bright, intricately detailed frescoes, which seemed to come alive in the flickering lights, immersing the viewer in mythology. The entire hall reveals to us a rare and vivid image of the lifestyle of Pompeii's elite. The very aristocratic top that, just moments before the city's tragic demise, was enjoying luxury and refined pleasures. This unique glimpse into the past allows us to understand how the upper echelons of society at that time arranged their leisure and maintained their health, as well as how they demonstrated their status and influence. If you think that modern spas and wellness treatments are merely a trendy fad, the latest archaeological findings in Pompeii completely dispel this misconception. Recently, scientists unearthed one of the largest private spa complexes in the city's history, which in its scale and richness of detail surpasses most known examples of that time. Within this complex, a frigidarium, a special cold room designed for hardening and strengthening the body, was discovered, as well as a spacious apoditerium, a place for rest and relaxation. It was impossible not to notice the spacious changing room and the magnificent pool, crafted with exquisite taste and elegant finishing. What is particularly interesting is that this complex bathing system was connected to the recently found banquet hall in the region, whose walls are painted in a rich black color. This hall, it seems, served not only for entertainment, but also for showcasing the wealth and status of its owners. At the center of the spa complex was a majestic inner courtyard, the so-called sport epic, which emphasized the Roman understanding of harmony and aesthetics, even in such utilitarian leisure areas. The walls of the complex were adorned with frescoes executed in the second and third styles of Pompeii, vivid, rich scenes depicting athletes, wrestlers, and figures inspired by the Greek art of gymnasiums. These images indicate that the place was not just for bathing and relaxation, but represented a complex space where health, art, and social prestige were combined. According to Gabriel Zuchtriegel, the head of the excavations, the entire complex was designed as a venue for shows and public demonstrations, with the homeowner at the center. For the elite, visiting the baths was not merely a hygienic procedure, but rather an act of status, a display of cultural and social connections. But the most striking discovery is the finding of graphic images made by children, some of whom were only 5 to 7 years old. These drawings, done with charcoal pencils at a height of about 15 centimeters from the floor, depict scenes of brutal violence. On the walls, one can discern gladiators armed with spears, hunters fighting wild beasts, and even boxers in the midst of a match, some lying defeated on the ground. Among the images is also an eagle's head, which seems quite unusual. These sketches are not just childish scribbles, but vivid illustrations of the bloody sport that was part of everyday life. The small outlines of hands traced on the walls hold a special place, an eerie testament to the fact that cruelty and violence were perceived in Pompeii not as something alien, but as a natural part of existence. Psychologists from the University of Naples, Federico II, suggested that these drawings were not the invention or fantasy of children. They were created based on real observations, as the little ones apparently saw what was happening with their own eyes. In other words, these children were not making up stories, but reproducing the scenes they actually witnessed. Gabriel Zuchtriegel emphasized that these findings compel a re-evaluation of the conventional views of ancient Roman society. They debunk the myth that cruelty and violence were something exceptional or hidden in those times. On the contrary, these evidences show that brutality and violence were perceived as a normal part of life, even for the youngest. In light of these discoveries, it can be understood that in Pompeii, violence was not a virtual entertainment. It was real, alive, and constantly present. Archaeologists excavating in Region 9 of ancient Pompeii may have made a unique find that could become the oldest recorded mention of pizza, or at least give us valuable insight into its predecessor. On a well-preserved fresco discovered inside one of the buildings, a flatbread is depicted lying on a silver platter next to a glass of wine. Of course, technically, this is not pizza as we know it, since tomatoes and mozzarella had not yet reached Roman cuisine, and the ingredients used in the fresco differ from the modern ones. Nevertheless, the resemblance between the depicted item and pizza is hard to ignore. The image likely depicts a flatbread covered with a mixture of ingredients such as pomegranate, dates, spices, and possibly a meridum paste, a popular ancient Roman blend of garlic, herbs, and cheese. While this is far from the pizza we know today, the find itself offers a fascinating glimpse into how everyday foods might have been depicted in the opulent interiors of the elite. As noted by Gabriel Zuchtriegel, the director of the Pompeii archaeological excavations, the contrast between the simple food and the luxurious silver stand highlights a deeper cultural meaning. Simple food surrounded by wealth and elegance is reminiscent of the modern practice of photographing street food on expensive porcelain and sharing these images on social media. This contrast emphasizes that even in ancient times, people crafted a visual narrative of their lives, blending simplicity with luxury. The location of this find is of particular importance. The fresco was discovered in an atrium adjacent to a building with a brick oven, suggesting it might have been part of a dining area or even a Roman cafe. Such context adds additional significance to the find, indicating that Pompeii had places where people could eat and socialize, possibly even in a public establishment. Meanwhile, one of the truly astonishing and even shocking discoveries in Region 9 of Pompeii reveals the harsh realities behind everyday life in ancient Rome. Archaeologists uncovered a bakery that also served as a prison, a place where enslaved people and animals were confined and forced to work under extremely harsh conditions. It was not a place of leisure or food preparation, but a true machine of suffering. Deep grooves cut into the floor testify to a system designed for complete control over the slaves. Blindfolded donkeys were made to walk in circles for hours, turning millstones to grind grain. Workers, often locked inside with barred windows, devoid of any hope for freedom, labored in conditions that evoke horror. The space was not merely functional, it was designed to oppress and subdue. Gabriel Zuchtriegel called it one of the most shocking aspects of ancient slavery, as the bakery was not just a workplace, but a symbol of exploitation, fueling the economy of Great Rome. While wealthy Romans enjoyed lavish feasts just steps away, the people baking their bread lived in conditions of violence, coercion, and enslavement. In a world without filters and filtering technologies, Romans knew how to make an impression with bright and vivid colors. Archaeologists unearthed an intricately decorated room in the color of a bright blue sky, interpreted as a sacrarium, a place for storing sacred objects and conducting ritual activities. This color was not accidental. The blue pigment was very rare and expensive, typically used for decorating spaces of special ceremonial significance or high status. This room essentially served as an ancient equivalent of a meditation space combined with an art gallery, where art and spirituality intertwined. On the walls of this ancient structure, painted in a bright, rich azure color, were depicted female figures, each representing one of the four seasons. These images created the impression that nature itself commissioned the artist to decorate the interior, as if it decided to adorn this house. Inside the room were 15 ceramic transport amphorae, as well as several bronze items intended for rituals and ceremonies. 2 jugs and 2 lamps made of bronze. What makes this discovery particularly significant is not only the richness of the color, but also the symbolism they carry. Their presence and preserved appearance indicate how deeply religious beliefs and practices were woven into the daily life of the ancient Romans. The discovery of such a room in a residential area suggests that faith and spiritual rituals were not confined to special days or temples, but became an integral part of the home environment. People created sanctuaries in their homes where they could address the gods, pray, and conduct rituals. The high quality of the room's finish and the use of the expensive blue pigment, bright and rich, indicate that this family took their religion very seriously and had sufficient means to afford such luxurious materials. The archaeologists who discovered this room literally hit the jackpot, as they uncovered a perfectly preserved part of a Roman construction site. These findings allow us to peek into the mysteries of ancient construction, revealing secrets such as the use of quick-drying cement and innovative methods that have kept the structures of those times standing to this day. At the archaeological site, tools, materials, and evidence of high-tech solutions used in construction were found. It can be said that it's as if we found a moment frozen in time, like stumbling upon a builder's break that remained forever. One of the key discoveries was evidence that the ancient Romans used hot mixing of cement. Instead of the usual method known today, pre-mixing quicklime with water, they first mixed dry quicklime with pozzolanic sand, adding water only before application. This approach allowed the mixture to remain hot during application, causing a thermal reaction and significantly reducing drying time. Essentially, the Romans invented quick-drying cement about 2,000 years before this idea became popular in modern construction. At the excavation site, lead weights used for lifting heavy walls, iron hose for mixing mortar, as well as leftover tiles and tough bricks from construction were also found. Equally intriguing is the discovery of Roman numerals scratched with charcoal. These were a kind of ancient stickers, serving as a record of materials and resources. All of this collectively explains why monumental structures, like the Colosseum, still stand despite the centuries. While many residential buildings constructed in the 20th century have already crumbled. In one of the most dramatic and eerie finds, Archaeologists unearthed the remains of a man and a woman lying next to each other, surrounded by a cache of valuables, gold, silver, and bronze coins, as well as exquisite jewelry. This was not just a tragic end to their lives, but a testament to an attempt by wealthy individuals to escape, taking with them their most valuable possessions. They were found in a small sealed room, which likely served as their final refuge during the eruption of Vesuvius. Volcanic ash had already filled the rest of the house, and inside this room, the woman lay on a bed, still clutching coins and jewelry in her hands, as if trying to keep them with her no matter what. Their desperate attempt to survive, clinging to their wealth, turned this scene into a tragic snapshot, a vivid testament to that. Thanks to the unique casts left from the ash of ancient ruins, archaeologists have been able to reconstruct the layout of the destroyed building with remarkable accuracy and detail. These findings have become a true key to understanding the internal structure of the building, allowing for the recreation of its exterior and interior design. However, as often happens in history, even the most astonishing discoveries can be tragic. In one of the tragic moments, they were met with a deadly flow of pyroclastic ash and gas, a powerful eruption that completely obliterated this monument of the past. But this story is just one of many filled with pain and loss. In another case, archaeologists stumbled upon a very touching and heartbreaking testimony of tragedy. In already conducted excavations, a tragic skeletal complex was discovered, including the bodies of 3 people, 2 adult women and a small child, no older than 3 years. These remains were found right on the floor, in the very environment that had already been excavated and studied. But most importantly, the positioning of the bodies indicated that this was likely a family trying to maintain unity in the struggle for survival. Their bodies lay close together, as if trying to shelter each other from the impending doom. Post-mortem injury traces indicated that death overtook them immediately after the ceiling collapsed, literally crushing them under the weight of the debris. A detailed forensic analysis of these remains reveals the horrific details of the tragedy. The discovered fragments of the collapsed attic were mixed with white pumice, a characteristic layer of ash and dust that appears in the early stages of a volcanic eruption. This evidence suggests that these people survived the initial powerful ashfall, but were ultimately killed when the building collapsed under the onslaught of lava and ash. Their bodies were crushed alive under the debris, and it appears that death was instantaneous. What makes this discovery particularly poignant and sensitive is, without a doubt, the presence of a child. A little boy or girl, only 3 years old, is the youngest of the victims we can speak of with certainty. History often forgets such small victims of tragedies, considering them merely statistics or archaeological objects. But in this case, we are talking about a living being, a child who likely had favorite toys, favorite foods, and perhaps even bedtime stories that are now forever cut short on one terrible day. This is not just a finding of bones. It is a reminder of innocence that was unjustly destroyed by a natural disaster. Alongside this, archaeologists discovered something entirely unexpected, a phalanca, a Roman laundry, which was a complex system for washing clothes. Inside the premises were stone counters and washing tubs, built into the structure of the building in such a way that it seemed more like a full-fledged workshop for cleaning and processing clothes than just an auxiliary room. Interestingly, this laundry was located right in the vestibule of an apartment building, indicating that city residents likely passed through it to tidy up their belongings before entering their own homes. This fact shows how much rational use of space was valued in Roman urban life. Even such important household processes as laundry were not separated from living areas, but integrated into the overall space of the house. The laundry process involved the use of fuller's earth, a special powder that helped remove dirt and grease. Water was added to the clothes and sometimes even human urine, rich in ammonia, which was excellent for cleaning. Workers would tread on the clothes with their feet to remove dirt, then rinse and sometimes even dye them in the same premises. All this evidence shows how the daily life of the Romans was filled with practical solutions, often quite unusual by modern standards. But there is more to this than meets the eye. The mythological scenes that adorned ancient walls served not only for decoration, but also became topics for dinner conversations. These discussions often spark debates about human destiny, morality, and the choices one makes in life. As explained by the director of the archaeological excavations, Gabriel Zuchtriegel, such scenes helped explore the internal tension between free will and fate, which seems predetermined. In those times, while guests enjoyed wine and a meal, they weren't just exchanging words. They were discussing the most important questions of human existence. For instance, they debated whether Helen, the heroine of ancient myths, followed her heart or was merely a puppet in the hands of gods controlled by fate. For the Romans, dinner was not just a meal. It was a time for reflection, for seeking answers to life's big questions, all under a majestic fresco that seemed as dramatic as the stories depicted on it. In this context, dinner turned into an intellectual and philosophical event where everyone could take on the role of a participant in great discussions. Modern political campaigns can be dirty and sometimes unethical, but the ancient Romans were no less sophisticated in this regard. They elevated this aspect to a new level by carving election advertisements directly on the walls of public buildings and homes. In Pompeii, archaeologists have found numerous pieces of evidence of this, inscriptions and graffiti supporting specific politicians. For example, among them were signatures in support of a man named Aulus Rustius Verus, whose initials ARV were carved on the walls of houses, on millstones, and even on household items. Imagine an ancient Twitter, only without character limits and with a constant stream of messages. It wasn't just a random expression of support, but part of a well-thought-out strategy. Historians believe that such inscriptions might have been part of a broader campaign, possibly including payments to local residents for public support. In other words, it was about electoral bribery, but carried out with chisels and on a scale worthy of modern politicians. One can only imagine how shop and house owners reacted when such graffiti appeared on their walls. One of them might have written, "You carved political ads on my bakery. I hope you paid in gold." Yet despite such measures, this campaign was successful. The name of Aulus Rustius Verus has endured for almost 2,000 years, longer than any modern political slogan or poster. Of course, all these efforts did not save him from the fate that befell Pompeii. When Vesuvius erupted, everything was destroyed and buried under layers of ash and lava. Archaeologists found 2 atrium houses in the city that were already several centuries old by that time. Built during the Samnite period, when Pompeii belonged to the Oscan-speaking Samnites, these buildings were considered historically significant even by Roman standards. By 79 AD, both houses were undergoing major renovations. It was much like today, updating an old building, turning it into modern housing, except that these works remain forever frozen in time. Evidence of this includes scattered tools, piles of building materials stacked in corners, and walls in the process of replastering. All this created the impression of a construction site rather than a residential home. It's easy to imagine how the owners of these houses at that time, juggling budgets, schedules, and impatient workers, tried to meet deadlines and weather conditions. But all this abruptly ceased as soon as Vesuvius erupted. The construction work was halted forever, frozen in time, eternally becoming part of the archaeological memory. These unfinished repairs give us a unique insight. Sometimes it is the smallest details that can turn the past into something astonishingly tangible and alive. In the very room where people once lived and died, clutching their valuables, archaeologists made a truly unique find: a bronze candelabrum that was toppled during the terrifying volcanic eruption. But this item was not just a lamp or light fixture, it was a symbol of luxury, an ancient Roman equivalent of modern elite designer lighting. In its time, this candelabrum proudly stood on a marble tabletop, casting a soft, warm glow, creating coziness and an atmosphere of tranquility for a couple sitting nearby, perhaps counting their coins, making plans, or simply enjoying the silence. And then everything changed. The ground began to shake, the air filled with ash, and this beautiful object, as if obeying fate, fell to the floor. Its final position remained exactly as it was at the moment of its fall, frozen in time for almost 2,000 years. Bronze candelabra in antiquity were not only lighting fixtures, but also a vivid sign of wealth and status. They symbolized success, wealth, and the good taste of the owners. That is why such a candelabrum was not just a functional item, but a testament to affluence and success. However, despite all its elegance, this light fixture could not protect itself from the destructive force of nature. In moments of catastrophe, wealth and beauty fall as easily as everything else. The ash had barely settled on the floor when archaeologists entered what was once an ordinary bedroom in the Pompeian house of the Lararium, an ancient city buried under a layer of ash and lava. But what they discovered was much more than just dust and debris. It became a haunting and poignant window into the lives of people whose fate was suddenly cut short at the most unexpected moment. In the center of the room stood a ghostly outline. It was a simple wooden bed. Using plaster casts, experts were able to reconstruct the shape of the frame and even found faint traces of fabric left on the pillow. Nearby stood a damaged wooden chest, partially open, as if someone had been trying in haste to take something out or hide it in the last moments of their life. Inside this chest were everyday items: a small three-legged table, decorative bowls, and among the debris, an astonishingly detailed oil lamp. It depicted the Roman god Zeus transforming into an eagle, a myth engraved on an ordinary item that served as a source of light. There was no gold or precious stones in this find, just the modest belongings of an average family. This is what gives the find its special power and value. This bedroom was not a monument or an exhibit. It was a real space, a home where real people lived with their own history and fate. It tells us what the grand villas or rich palaces never could, what it meant to live not as the elite, but as a person trying to build a modest, cozy life on the brink of disaster when the whole world suddenly collapsed. A huge and sincere thank you to everyone who watched this episode to the end. Your support, attention, and interest are very important to us. Don't forget the importance of your like and subscription. It helps us continue to share important and interesting stories with you. And of course, don't forget to click the bell to always stay updated on the latest news and new episodes.